Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Brandley.
And I'm Alicia Coakley. Every member of the church has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to hear how a lifetime of health struggles and surgeries has taught one woman that Heavenly Father is always at her bedside and will never leave her alone. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're so glad you're here with us today, and we're really excited to introduce our special guest, Nicole Gustad. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Scott and Alicia, for having me.
You're so welcome. We really appreciate you reaching out to us and being willing to share our story. I know Scott and I, we've been watching as the show grows more listeners and reaches, different places and stuff like that. And so we're interested. How did you come across Latter-day Lights?
First of all, I started listening to podcasts during COVID. During COVID time, probably like a lot of people did.
Yep.
And I was struggling a lot then, like my life, but I needed something. I needed more. We weren't going to church. The temple was closed.
Yeah.
I needed my spiritual upliftment. So I just started Googling for healthy, clean LDS podcasts. And, I slowly came across This Is the Gospel and Come Follow Me for Us and then you. And I love my story. I even though it's been hard, I am who I am because of my story. And I know who I am because of it.
Awesome.
And so that is why I'm here. And that is why I started listening to podcasts and you.
Awesome.
Yep. You took over This Is the Gospel. That is for sure. I don't know if you know that one, but you both.
Yeah.
I have heard of that one. So we're in the lead for that one, huh? Yeah.
Yes, you did. So it was a good one, and it was just personal stories like you, and so here I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I actually took a course from the lady that did This Is My Gospel. She talked about podcasts actually.
Oh, how funny!
That is so funny that was the one that was teaching. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I learned something new today.
her name's Karen Lay.
Yes, Karen Lay. Yeah, and it was so sad when she ended. It was just like, but she was going on for better things, which is good for her. So
yeah,
that's too funny.
We're actually, I'm trying to get her on the podcast because I'd love to hear her story.
Yeah. You could tell her she inspired me to do mine. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Well, Nicole, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I live in South Carolina, lived here for 2 years, been married for 27 years.
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you. This last month. I've been blessed with 2 daughters. My oldest would have been 25. She passed away.
Wow.
And then, thank you. And then my second just turned 21. We have, as you saw, getting ready, I have 2 cats and they are my children at home now. I love them dearly. I was gone on vacation for 2 weeks and they've missed me. And now I'm doing this. And it's like, I want to be with you. But I have to wait. So I am, like I said to you earlier, I am a missionary for Family Search. I love it.
Awesome.
And so that is me.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Scott loves cats.
That's a lie.
Most people don't.
I do. I've got 3 of them and a dog. And, I tell my kids, I have 3 kids. And so I'm like, whoever leaves first, you have to take an animal with you, So eventually we'll only be left with 1, maybe. But I don't know. Like my oldest cat, he's getting up there in age. So he may not make it to, having a kid move out, but we'll see what happens. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, do I really want to not have a pet? I don't know. So I might.
Oh, you have to have a pet. You just
Right.
have to.
I may stop with the cats because they are very hairy. I feel like I have hair everywhere. I might get one of those little naked dogs. I don't know. Put sweaters on it or something that feel like a cat. We'll see what happens. But, but we can never get any pets for Scott. So
Oh, are you
Hey,
allergic?
If I want my pet fix, I'll go to my mom's house. She has
Okay.
pets, and I'll pet them, and we're good for a couple weeks. I'll be okay.
That's how my family is. I'm the only one who really likes pets. I have a nephew that likes pets, but they don't like to come here because of them. And I'm like, oh, well, that's your loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
My husband claims he doesn't like our pets, yet if you look at his phone, you'll see that he has more pictures of our pets on his phone than anything else.
Oh, how
Literally
funny.
anything else. It's always like he's always sending me more pictures of our cats sleeping in random positions or our dog doing something silly. And I'm like, yeah, you're that person. You do like him. You're a fur parent. He won't admit it
Whether
though.
he likes to admit it or not. Exactly.
Well, awesome, Nicole. We're super glad you're on the show, and we're excited to hear your story. So why don't we turn the time over to you and tell us where your story begins?
Well, thank you, Scott. Where my story begins. I guess it starts like when I was talking to Alicia on the phone. It starts when I was born. I was born in the early 70s, and I was born really sick. The doctors didn't know why. I just kept getting sicker and sicker. I had pneumonia 7 times before I was 1. My mom would take me to doctor's appointments after doctor's appointments. I wasn't thriving. I wasn't growing. They just couldn't figure out why. Well, my great aunt, I guess you would call her, suggested to my mom to take me to this one doctor. And so my mom did. Don't know what kind of doctor they were. She doesn't remember. And they found out that I had a hole in my heart. It was the size of a quarter. Pretty big hole.
For a baby.
For a baby.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, because, it's the size of a fist of a normal heart, and the baby's heart is even smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept getting sick, and they're like, we can't wait any longer. We need to do surgery. So they decided to do surgery. And my mom had been taking the missionary lessons, introduced her to the church, and she wasn't a member yet. And, but she felt something was there. She knew it was good. She was raised Pentecostal, I'm pretty sure. I want to say it was Pentecostal, but never fully went, faithfully.
Yeah. And where was this?
It was in LA.
In LA. Okay.
In LA. Gotcha. Yes. So it was northern LA area, actually, but my surgery ended up being in LA Children's Hospital. The surgeon at the time found out my mom was taking the missionary lessons, and he was a member of the church. And he's like, anyone I know that is a member, I offer a blessing to. Can I give your daughter a blessing? And she had the faith already, and she's like, yes, anything to help you or my daughter. I need something. I'm willing. And my dad accepted also. My parents were married back then. And so he gave me the blessing. And in the blessing, it said, according to my mom's faith and her desire to have me, I would be made whole. So he proceeded with the surgery. I survived, as you could tell. My mom, it's funny, I just went to see her, and she told me it did take me a while to start growing and build my strength. Even after my surgery, I guess, I wasn't still thriving like they would like. But eventually, I did it, and I'm here at my age. I was very grateful for my surgeon. I'm grateful that my mom had the faith, and I'm here. I so fast forward till when I was about 5, I had another surgery, um, and there was a lot of just issues and stuff, and I did great during that one. And it was for my ears. My ears used to stick out, and so I had them pinned back.
Okay.
Then, as I got older, when I was 12, I was playing tetherball in school, and I twisted my ankle really, really bad. My mom had to get me from school. She took me to the doctor. They said it wasn't broken, but I needed to stay off it. And I didn't know what was going on because all I knew was hurt. It was just really, really, really painful. Well, they decided to do some type of surgery on my foot because I remember my aunt coming to visit me in the hospital. So I know I had something done, but I don't remember what. So that was another one that I had done, and it never was the same after. My feet started to curl. They started to have like club feet. And just, I would just fall for no reason. And my mom would take me again to doctors. They tried to test me for everything. Nothing came about. I went on with my life, did very well, and I did the best I could for school. I had a lot of learning disabilities. I tried really, really, really hard. But at the same time, I was really blessed with a lot of friends. Friends were my lifeline. They gave me the strength that I needed to just be me. If they knew, they didn't care how I was. I knew I was different, but I didn't know how I was different, if that makes sense. All my friends were smart. They were really, really smart. I had some smart straight A friends. One of my friends was valedictorian of our class. She was one of my best girlfriends, and they just loved me for me, who I was. And I was just always so grateful for that because, like I said, I knew I was different. I knew I had my struggles. I kept things really private. When I got older, we moved from one town to another, and I was in the 5th grade. And my mom decided to help me back from school that year because she didn't do it when I was in kindergarten. Like, most kids get held back when they're in kindergarten. And I was so nervous. I'm like, Mom, but I don't want anyone to find out. I don't want to be laughed at, anything. And she's like, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Nobody will know. Well, no one knew. In fact, my friends today just found out not too long ago, and they were shocked. They were like, really? We didn't even know that. So we went to this new ward. My mom, let me back up. My mom did join the church. We joined the church. I joined when I was 8, like a normal 8-year-old. And when I was 12, we moved to another town, and it was in Santa Clarita, California. And we were having new beginnings. And of course, parents were invited, and my mom came. and we were just learning about the program, personal progress, and all that fun stuff. And afterwards, the Young Women's president was talking to me and my mom and getting to know me. Well, I had siblings also. They were all older. My one sister was 3 years older. I don't know where she was at this time, but like I said, I was there. And the Young Women's president, somehow my health came up. I don't remember how or what, but my mom's like, yeah, Nicole had open heart surgery when she was 13 months old. And the lady's like, oh, my dad was is a heart surgeon. And she's like, oh, really? Where at? And she's like, LA Children's Hospital. Now, mind you, you do not stay in touch with your heart surgeons. You stay in touch with your cardiologists. And, you never see your heart surgeons again. Well, so his wife actually ended up being there, and my mom was like, well, what's your husband's name and your dad's name? And like, Glenn Walker. And she's like, my mom was like, I think that was Nicole's heart surgeon. Well, fast forward, it was my heart surgeon. He was coming to pick up his wife at New Beginnings that night, and I got to meet him again.
That's cool.
And
Cool.
he actually remembered me. He actually remembered my case. And he was so excited how well I was doing and thriving. And a member of the church, because, back then my mom wasn't. My mom was still investigating.
Right.
So we were talking and visiting, and he told me that he was in the LA Temple presidency. And as we were talking, I was just teasing, and I'm like, you're still in the LA Temple presidency when I get married. Will you marry me? And he's like, of course, I would love to. I would love to. Well, life went on. I graduated from school. Very hard, but I did it. I always wanted to go on a mission. Mission was my dream. My patriarchal blessing even says that my mission, the desire within me will grow, and that I will want to go more and more. And I did. I remember when I was 18 and I was like, oh, I just wish I could go on my mission. I wish I could just go on my mission now. And of course I had to wait. I went to college my first year. Very, very hard for me, but I did it. I even passed, which was shocking. I went to Rick's. And then after Rick's, I went back home and I was getting ready for my mission. Well, I forgot to mention my mom and parents divorced when I was young. And it was difficult, but it was necessary in our home. My dad ended up dying when I was 18. He had lung cancer.
Wow.
Never smoked a day of his life. He was a professional handball player.
Wow.
And one day he came to pick me up and he just fainted. And my mom's like, Tommy, you need to come in the house because this was not like my dad. And he went to the doctor and they found it, the cancer. He ended up living 18 months and he never accepted the church. He never joined. But he was very accepting of us being members, which I was very grateful for. But he was a very difficult father. He was verbally abusive. He would always like to also take us out on Sundays, like to a ball game, to the movies because that's what he loved.
Right.
And he wanted to share that with us. And then finally, when I was about 13 or 14, I was like, Dad, I can't do it anymore. I know it's wrong. And believe it or not, he was very gracious about it, very accepting.
Good.
And I was very grateful for that. But it was very hard because, like I said, he was very verbally abusive. And I was very scared of my dad. But it went well, and he truly did respect me afterwards for that. My mom did remarry, and I ended up loving this man. He was my stepfather. His family was my family. He had a nephew that came to live with us, and he ended up becoming like one of my best friends. We were very, very close. He and I would play backgammon for all hours, watch movies for all hours in the day, just have a lot of fun together. And when we would go up to Utah and visit, that's where they lived. I would hate the cold. I would hate the cold, being from Southern California. And he would tease me, and he's like, "You're going to go to Rapid City, South Dakota. You're going to go to Rapid City." And I'm like, "No, the Lord wouldn't do that to me. Not with my feet," because I was still having feet issues. And he's like, "No, you're going to go to Rapid City, South Dakota." And I'm like, "No, the Lord wouldn't do that to me. He knows me better than that." So fast forward now till when I did get my mission call. I finally was the day that I got my mission call, and I opened it with my sisters, and they didn't do what they do now, big old, whatever they do. It was just me and my sisters. And it said, "You are hereby called to serve to the Rapid City, South Dakota mission." And I was shocked. I was like, oh my goodness, Matt jinxed me. The Lord truly has a sense of humor. That I'm going to Rapid City. So I hurried and called Matt up. His name's Matt. And I'm like, "Guess where I'm going?" And he's like, "Where?" And I'm like, "Rapid City, South Dakota." And he just laughed and laughed and laughed. So I got all ready, was going to go to Rapid City, South Dakota. Got the negative 32-degree down jacket. I had the boots. I had everything. My sisters got me ready for my mission. And I was in the MTC. My companion was going to Johannesburg, South Africa. And I was going to South Dakota, and all the elders were going to Ohio. And we were in class one day, and someone called me over the intercom to go to the office. And I'm like, okay. So I went by myself to the office of the presidency, the MTC presidency. And one of them called me in and was like, "We were rethinking of your mission call, and we feel that we need to send it back up. That we didn't know why, but we just really feel strongly." And so I'm like, okay, I'm willing. I didn't care where I was going. I was willing to go to Rapid City. I was dressed. And it was March, mind you. And so I was going in the winter. I was ready. And he's like, "No, I just feel like we need to send it back up." So to the prophet. And so I'm like, okay. So I was waiting all over again for my mission call. And I went back to class, and everybody's like, "What happened? What happened?" And they're like, "Wow." So every day we would come in, "Have you got it yet? Have you got it yet?" Where I'm like, no. So literally I was waiting for a mission call all over again to see if I was going to go to Rapid City, South Dakota.
Oh my gosh.
So I was waiting. And then finally, about a week later, they call me back into the office, and they read me this scripture in Doctrine and Covenants. And it was about change, and that change happens. And it changes for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know always why, but it's still from the Lord. And then his secretary comes in and he's like, you've got a call and you need to take it now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to know where I'm going on my mission?
Yeah.
And I was just so anxious and just like, well, just tell me before you go. And he had to go right then. So I looked down on his desk and I see you are reassigned to the Mississippi Jackson mission. And I felt the most overwhelming, peaceful feeling come over me that I knew that's where I was supposed to be, that I was supposed to go to not Rapid City. I was supposed to go to Mississippi Jackson mission. So he comes back in and he's like, you're going to Mississippi Jackson mission and you leave in 3 days. And I'm like, I didn't know anything about the South. I'm from Southern California, but not the South. I didn't know the weather.
Right.
Totally different worlds. And I said, I don't have anything for the South. I was planning on going.
Yeah, you got all the snow gear.
And he's like, and so he's like, excuse me. He's like, do you have sisters or do you have family here? And I said, yeah, I have sisters here. Like, call them up on a payphone. They were out in the MTC in the front. They could come pick you and your companion up and take you shopping. So I literally had 3 days to change everything out for Mississippi Jackson mission. And I learned at that time that truly the Lord has a sense of humor. That he was truly testing me to see if I really was willing to go to Rapid City, South Dakota. And have the cold and the miserable, because I was going to be on Indian reservations. I would have learned, and Sioux. I mean, all this stuff just out in the field. But when I got to Mississippi, I knew without a doubt that I was there for those people, to serve, to bless, to teach, and to grow. And I did. And to this day, I'm still friends with some of those people. And I loved my mission. I loved my mission president and his wife. I grew. I knew that's where I was supposed to go. I knew it. So I came home from my mission. I went back to UVSC when it was UVSC instead of UVU, I think now, whatever it's called. And my next dream, of course, was to get married. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have a family. When I was little, I would always tease my mom and say I wanted 15 kids. That definitely changed. But it took a while. It didn't happen right away. I was able to go back to my mission and revisit. I feel like there's blessings to have stateside missions because it's so much easier than, traveling overseas or wherever else. So I went back to visit families and did a lot of wonderful things. Well, finally, I met my eternal companion. We met on a blind date. We've been married for 27 years last month. And I was blessed to get pregnant. I was so excited. I didn't have any issues. I had a wonderful pregnancy. And then when I was 4 months pregnant, we did the ultrasound to find out if it was a girl and a boy and everything else. Well, again, let me back up a little bit. When I had my heart condition and surgery, it was my biggest fear to always have a child with health issues, just because of mine and everything else. And the doctors would tell me, don't worry about it. You're the only one in your family. There's no chance, don't worry about it. Well, they detected a heart problem with our sweet daughter. Wasn't 100% sure of what she had. They knew she had either pulmonary atresia with a VSD and an ASD, which is a hole in her upper and lower chambers, and a leaky valve. They didn't know how she would be born. They asked if I wanted to abort, and I said,
wow.
no. I said, no, I'm keeping her no matter what. We will get through this. I did. And we will survive this. So the 9 months went, had, appointments after appointments, had a periodontologist, which is a specialty. Oh, what's it called? OBGYN. And just to make sure everything was okay when she was born.
Mm-hmm.
She was going to be born at University of Utah. And when she was born perfectly healthy. She did have heart issues, but when she was born healthy. She was taken away from me, of course, to get everything checked and made sure everything was okay. And she was. We were able to take her home at 5 days old. And she thrived. She did great. She seemed like a normal, healthy baby. She cried. She tried to sit up. She did everything she could to please everybody else. She was a pleaser at a little thing. When we were at one of her cardiologist's appointments, her cardiologist was really, really, really good. And she looked at her, Alyssa was her name, and myself, and she's like, "Can I test you for something?" And I'm like, "What? What do you want to test us for?" And she's like, "I don't want to tell you now because the internet was just coming. You could start Googling things." And this was in 99. And she's like, "I don't want to tell you yet. I just want to test you first." And so I said, so my husband and I are like, "Okay, you can test us." Well, it came back that we had a genetic disorder, and it's called DiGeorge syndrome. It's rare. It was more rare 25 years ago. It's a whole umbrella of problems. It could be muscular. It could be heart. It's health. It's immune. It's feet. It's anything under the sun. And this is what we had. It is the closest sister to Downs. Most people, of course, know what Downs is. To find out, you could have autism with it. I'm very lucky. I'm very high functioning. You also could have schizophrenia, which I'm blessed to not. You can battle with depression, which I do. And I'm sure it has to do with all my health issues. And so there's just a lot of unknowns. I was shocked, especially when my doctor said never to worry about it, that it wasn't hereditary. But unfortunately it was. It was even greater chance that we would pass it on since I had it and our oldest daughter had it. So Alyssa had her first open heart surgery. She did great. She got a valve replacement. They fixed her holes. They did whatever else they needed to do. She did great. She came home on oxygen only, and she did great. She kept thriving and growing and doing great. Meantime, my feet were getting worse. I forgot to mention before Alyssa was born, I think I did have one surgery on my feet. I've lost track how many I've had on my feet because just to be able to walk. because the club
Wow.
feet makes it very, very, very difficult. I would trip,
Right.
I would fall, and I have the best husband in the world for me. He adores me. He's the best nurse, and he takes care of me.
Aw.
So Alyssa was doing great. We were living in Utah, and my husband just finished his degree in being an airline mechanic. So he got his first job in Oregon. So we moved up to Oregon, and, we're a little family, nothing really different other than a sick child. But we were doing great. We were loving life and doing great. We took our daughter to a heart appointment, and her valve started leaking. So her new valve. So she had to get another valve replacement. And it was really neat. It was in Oregon, like I said, and she had one of the oldest surgeons do her surgery, and it was the one who discovered the pig valve.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called, procedure. And so he did it. His name was Dr. Starr. He was 87 years old. He could walk the halls and beat the nurses even at his age. And Alyssa did great. She
How
was,
old was she at this point?
She was a little over a year at this point. At this point, she was a little over a year, almost 2 years. And she did great. She came out of surgery. I remember her looking at me and wanting me to hold her, and all normal baby stuff, and doing just great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she got out of the hospital and was growing and thriving. My husband, like I said, worked for the airlines. He worked for SkyWest. He was gone all the time, and it was hard. He worked nights. I was home with Alyssa by myself and my feet, and just, kind of having a hard time. Well, he's decided that he would start applying and looking for other places, to hopefully getting a better shift. And he got a better shift, we thought, in North Carolina. And it was a swing shift. And so we're like, okay, let's do this. Let's go cross country. My husband was from the Midwest. I had never been outside of the West, other than Mississippi, of course. And we're going. Alyssa was doing okay at this time. Her platelets kept dropping, and they didn't know why. They just kept dropping, and they would give her a blood transfusion, and they'd come back up, and then they would test her for things, and everything was negative. So they're like, you can go, you're clear. So we move out to North Carolina. It was our home instantly. We loved it there. We loved our ward. Our ward was our family. Our ward, our bishop was amazing. We get there, and Alyssa was really sick. We were asked to give a talk, in Sunday. And we didn't know who was going to hold her, because she was only used to maybe mom and dad. And I had a friend hold her for me, and she did fine. And she would just always hold her head to the side. She just didn't have any energy. She didn't have any strength. And we finally took her to the hospital, and they again had to test her for everything under the sun, because the hospital in Oregon did not bring anything, or didn't give us any of our records. And we're like, why? And poor thing, she had to have leukemia testing, HIV testing, because of her blood transfusion, just everything. And nothing came positive. And we're like, what is going on? Well, she finally had another heart cath because they could tell things were going on with her heart. And she just wasn't going to make it after that. They said they don't know what's going on, and there was nothing more they could do. So family came. I really didn't want anybody to come because I wanted my whole heart with her. I didn't want to worry about anybody else. But my sister didn't listen. I'm very close with this sister. She is my savior. She is my everything. I have two really good sisters, but this one, we're very close. And she came, and then my husband's whole family came. And meanwhile, when we were in the hospital, we were deciding whether to take her home or not, to let her die at home, because, hospitals aren't fun. And she had been in there for a few days. And my family was there. And the next day we were going to take her home. And she just wasn't going to make it. We could just tell she necessarily wasn't going to make it at home. And all the nurses that had helped and took care of her, every one of them came in to say goodbye to her. And she looked at every single one of them. By this time, she was a little over 2. She never walked. She could say mama and dada, but really that's about it. She loved Sesame Street. She loved Elmo and Ernie. But she truly was a pleaser. She, like I said, she looked at every one of those nurses and thanked them in their own way. And none of them left there in a dry eye. As the night went on, my family was exhausted from the travel. And they wanted to go home, freshen up. And I'm like, go home, but come back. If you want to say goodbye, come back early. Come back early. And my sister-in-law decided to stay. She didn't want to leave us or her. And we just had a great night talking, remembering, loving on her. She was sleeping in and out very peacefully, very peacefully. She didn't seem like she was in pain at the time. And she, and one thing I forgot to mention is I don't have a good singing voice, but I always sang to her. And my song to her was Teach Me to Walk in the Light. Never knew why. But it was a very sweet, tender song for me. And at this point, I just started singing it to her just to feel his love and that it was okay. She was just resting, and we were wanting my family to come back. They finally came back, and she again looked at every one of them and said goodbye in her own way and thanked them for loving her and just being family. And you could see it in her eyes. You knew what she was doing. She then looked at my sister-in-law and then looked at my husband and then looked at me and then looked at my husband again and then looked at me and then passed away. And it was so peaceful. There was no wailing. There was no, of course there were tears, but they were peaceful tears. She suffered a lot in her 2.5 years of life. And she just needed to get a body. And I had that testimony. I had that testimony because of my mom, because of my leaders, because of my mission. We had the best love and support of my members, my ward family. My mom ended up coming out. My sister had to go because she had kids, young kids. But we had all the love and support. Like I said, I had the best bishop at the time. He was very patient with me. He talked with me many times to comfort me, give me blessings. And I'm a survivor. I had great friends that let me have their babies when I needed a baby to love because my arms were empty. She was my joy. So after Alyssa died, I had another feet surgeries. I had several. Like I said, I've lost track, to be honest, how many surgeries I'm at in my life. I'm 52. And I'm between 40 and 50 now.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Mainly on my feet and has spread to my knees. They can't figure out now what's going on with my right knee. I fast forward a year and I was ready to adopt. I wanted another baby. My husband was a little more hesitant. He was a little more scared. But I didn't care. I wanted that child. So we decided a year after our daughter's anniversary, we would file for our paperwork. This was when the church did adoptions. So I was blessed. And and we waited, just like everybody else. We waited. It was hard. It was hard having my arms empty. It was hard because people would ask me, why aren't you having more of your own? And have to tell them, this is why. New members in the ward didn't realize we had lost. And why don't we have a baby? Why aren't we parents or this and that? It's very sensitive. Very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
But I was getting to the point at my end. And I was like, Heavenly Father, I'm done. I've waited. I've gone through so much. I want another baby. It was a righteous desire. And I was ready. I had this dear friend, and she wanted to offer to be my surrogate. And I didn't know if the church did them back in the time because, again, this was 21 years ago. And so she asked. I said, if you want to ask, I would not take it, But since her and her husband were sealed, the child would be born under the covenant. So they couldn't do it that way. So I thought that was very sweet that I had a dear friend willing to just offer that to me. Just to offer. That's what I mean. That has been one of my biggest blessings. Not only my husband, but the dear friends that are so dear mattered to me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that weekend, I got on my knees and I prayed. I'm like, Heavenly Father, I need this. I am ready. I am sad. I am tired. I want this baby. Well, literally that Friday, I don't remember what day that was. It was probably Wednesday. But that Friday, we were told not to go out of town. And we're like, why? Why? Like, I can't say anything, but just don't go out of town and be by your phone. And I'm like, oh, great. So I was excited. I'm like, am I going to be a baby? What's going to happen? Well, the call came the next night. Our sweet daughter was born. And we were able to go pick her up the next day, and it was Sunday. And I'm like, I don't have anything. I have nothing. I literally had, 12 hours notice. And they're like, and this is how obedient I've been my whole life, that I asked, can I go get a car seat? I mean, on a Sunday, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you could go get some things. The Lord will understand. Go. Come.
Yeah.
So we were so excited. And our daughter, Hannah, was born. The birth mom handed her to us. And she has been our everything. She has just been so fun. She has been healthy overall. She didn't get her first stomach flu until about 5 or 6. And I truly was blessed with that. I adore her. She is now 21. Unfortunately, she's inactive, but she has her choices. And I have learned that.
Yeah.
But I feel one day, I hope that she will be back. I have that faith. But she has been everything. Like I said, I had been through many surgeries. When Hannah was 12. So let me back up. Like I said, I have sisters and brothers, and they have kids. They all have kids. Both sisters had children Alyssa's age, the daughter that passed away. And my sister Amber had a daughter the same age as my Hannah. And and they were close. They always kind of bat heads a little bit. But, they just each had their own personality. Well, I told you that my mom had remarried and had he had a nephew that was like my brother. His name was Matt, and very close. And he had kids more Hannah's age, and they were her cousins. They truly, truly were her cousins through and through. She was right in the middle of the girls, and they played. They loved life together, and were just great friends and kids and cousins. Well, Matt had issues. Matt had a lot of demons, and he ended up committing suicide. And it killed me for a while. It was very, 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 very hard. Didn't realize how hard it was on my daughter until later in life. But I've had some really wonderful experiences with him. I know he's all right. I know he has had a lot of repenting and doing what he needs to do up there to be forgiven. But it really damaged my daughter's soul, and more than I thought, and it really was hard. The reason why I'm sharing that is because I've just had a lot of hard things. I've been through, like I said, several surgeries, several painful surgeries, to be able to walk.
40 is more than several.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. More than several.
Yeah.
But I'm here. I'm a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, I thought I was alone. I thought
Mm-hmm.
I was the only one to go through a lot of hard things. And why is the Lord keep throwing me these hard things?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still here. I'm still strong in the gospel. It is my everything. I have tender mercies like there's no tomorrow. For instance, I would like to share one of them. With my daughter, like I said, I sang Teach Me to Walk in the Light. It was just our song. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. But I didn't know at the time. And every Mother's Day for many, many years, we would sing that song.
Yeah.
And I knew it would be from my Alyssa and my Heavenly Father, that they're aware of me, that they are there for me, that I am not alone. Mm-hmm. Another one was not too long ago. Alyssa's birthday is January 5th, right after Christmas. And my friend and I here love to go thrifting. Even though we don't need anything sometimes, we just like to go look and have fun. And I live in South Carolina now, and South Carolina is a great place for it. We went to the temple for Alyssa's birthday one time, just a few years ago. And I always say to my nieces and my close friends, I love you the mostest. I say it instead of I love you more, because everybody says I love you more. And so I say I love you mostest. And she was looking at jewelry because she needed a necklace. And she was looking for a silver necklace. She's like, Nicole, come here. And I'm like, what? She's like, look at that. And there was this bracelet. And on one side it said, love you. And I asked the guy, I'm like, can I see this bracelet, please? And he pulled it out, and it was a heart. And I always do the purple heart emoji. That's my nephew will laugh. It's just my symbol because I love purple. And on the other side, it said the mostest. And again, this was on Alyssa's birthday. Oh, so wow. I have these tender mercies and gifts that I do hear him. I hear him often. You don't necessarily think about it because it's an everyday thing, but it is truly from him. When I would hear Teach Me to Walk in the Light every Mother's Day, I was like, is that really happening? Am I really getting that blessing? And then when I started to notice it and tell people a little bit more, it was like, it is it. It is there. And one time I didn't get it, and I got it on in Relief Society instead of sacrament meeting. And then this last time I didn't get it, but I got it once in June and once in July. Right. So I got kind of made up for it. And I know it's probably silly, but it's my way of Like I said, knowing I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that these miracles really do come
Mm-hmm.
when needed. I struggle with a lot of pain with my feet and with my knees. And I have to hear him. I have to rely on him because I don't know why I can't get it taken away. I don't know why I can't get better. But I know because I have a testimony of him
Mm-hmm.
and I could share it. And I'm not afraid to share it. This is just like, I know I've been a long time, and this is just bits and pieces.
Right.
Bits and pieces of my miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's because of President Nelson. When one of the last things that my daughter went to, we lived in Arizona at the time, and he came to speak to the youth, President Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when his message was about hearing him.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I truly, truly try to hear him.
Mm-hmm.
And he is there. I've been through therapy many times. And my last therapy, I've loved all three of them. I really have. But this last one was amazing. And I highly recommend therapy. It helps.
Mm-hmm.
It helps. That's
It
all
does.
that's all I have to say. It helps.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one day I'll be perfect. And I hold on to that. I hold to my covenant so dearly, especially the initiatories, that I will be perfect one day. I will be perfect one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I'm here, to share my story, to believe,
Mm-hmm.
to share that he is there and you're not alone. I am actually writing my story. I've wanted to write for a long time, but just put it off. And I'm finally at the point where I'm writing it. I don't know if it will be for my family. I don't know if it will be ever published, but it is for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
for my children. It's for my posterity to know that they have an aunt who loves the Lord. To know that I will do anything for him. I will suffer if I need to, as long as I can return to live with him and my daughter.
I love that. Wow. It makes me think of in the scriptures where who was going to get thrown in the fire? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I think
Yeah.
did that one.
Yep.
And then where they had all of this faith, right? Like they knew, like God can put the fire out, God can stop us from being thrown there, and whatever it is. But if not, He's still God.
Yep.
And your story just reminds me so much of that. Of like, you're willing to do this stuff, and you know that He can take away the pain and the health struggles and the, all the bad things and make everything perfect and beautiful and easy for you. But if not, you can just see how much faith you still have in Him and how much respect and love and, perspective wise, I love that you're able to see those little tiny miracles and those little like nods, like God nods, I guess.
Yeah. I call them angel kisses. I
Yeah.
call them, I don't know if it was from your podcast or someone else's, but someone called them that. And I'm like, they're my Alyssa kiss. I'm getting my
Yeah.
Alyssa kiss for the day, or
Yeah.
my Matt kiss, for the day,
Right.
because I know they are with me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand how much family is around you. Like I said, this is just a glimpse
Mm-hmm.
of my story. I went through COVID, a horrible experience, almost death. I mean, horrible, but I knew my family was with me. I
Yeah.
knew it. And it's amazing how much we don't see that is really there.
Mm-hmm.
That is truly right in front of you.
Yeah.
It
And it's
really,
cool to know that you also have things that you will see that all of a sudden, and like with your heart surgeon. And I know this is
yes,
one
I
thing that you
forgot.
told me about.
I
You told me about
forgot.
it on the phone, but you didn't tell our
Yes,
listeners. So I
because
want to.
yes, I was, thank you for bringing that up because I'm like, I skipped that part. So what I was telling Alicia on the phone is, so I met my heart surgeon at 12 and I asked him to, if he would marry me. Well, fast forward 12 years later, I think it was 13 years later, my heart surgeon was the LA Temple president. And I went to him and I asked him if he would marry me and my husband. And he's like, "Of course I will." And but he had a commitment. He actually had a reunion. And because I got married the 5th of July. And he's like, "I will try my hardest to be there." And he actually left him and my leader, young women's leader. Like I said, I had the best. Um, Left the reunion to come to my wedding, and he married my husband and I. And he actually made jokes, like he actually touched my heart and everything. So yes, my heart surgeon did marry me, and
Yeah.
we were friends till the day he died. And
Wow.
his wife and I, who was my leader, are still really close, good friends.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's
See, that's
yeah,
just so cool. Like to see, like, I don't know. I love thinking about how much we're going to find out when
I
we
know.
pass on.
Yep,
Like we're going to get to see all those little nods that we missed. We're
yep.
going to get to see how all these connections worked out. I'm sure from your heart surgeon's perspective, he probably never really gets to know what happens, you
No,
know, years and years down
they
the road.
don't.
So for him to be able to see this baby that he worked on grew to be a young woman, and now she's in the church, and then
Church,
all of a sudden she's married, and
Mary,
she's getting married in the temple, and he gets to be a part of like such big
step by
life
step,
changing events. Like it's
and
just so cool that Heavenly Father is like,
aware of all. And the neat thing was when we did adoptions, when we did our adoption for our Hannah,
mm-hmm,
her brother, his son. So my young women's president's brother did adoptions for the church too, and so he showed our profile also. So they were truly, the whole
wow,
family was a part of my life to where I'm at.
wow.
And I mean, I truly believe, and you might think this too, but we had the best leaders. We
Mm-hmm,
truly, I cannot say how I grew up enough. I mean, it's part of my book, how much fun we had. And they wanted us to be youth and to get our testimony and to have that ground of these hard times, of have these trials. And that's why I'm here. That is
mm-hmm.
why, and not, and my mom, don't get me wrong, and my mom. And like I said, there's so much more of my story that I didn't even tell. Because, like I said, I know I'm really long, but those were just the big points that I wanted to convey. That,
Yeah.
like I said, Heavenly Father sees you. You're not
Mm-hmm.
alone. And miracles do happen. For instance, my mom moved to Alaska and, um, and she lives there with my stepfather. My mom married twice after my father. And and a missionary from my mission, his son went to Anchorage, if that makes sense. He's a missionary in Anchorage. And I wanted to see him so bad. I wanted to see him. And I tried to get a hold of him through Instagram Messenger. He wouldn't message me back. There was no way. And she told her son, she really wants to see you, blah, blah. And I had an appointment to go to the temple in Anchorage. Anyway, long story short, he was the last one in the session of that session that I was in that I got to meet this
That's
missionary
cool.
son. And so that all you have to do is hear him, like President Nelson says. Hear him and ask, and he will bless you with.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so easy when you have that many trials. It would be so easy to be bitter if you didn't have faith.
Yep.
And I don't think you necessarily have to be a member of the church to have that kind of faith, but it does help having that eternal perspective. Especially like when your daughter passes or someone you love dies. I think that's really one of the really good comforting things about the gospel, right? Is that knowledge of the plan of salvation and that we can be families together
forever.
It's so comforting.
I was actually promised that all I need to do is keep doing what I'm doing to see my daughter again. I was given that promise by my bishop, and I'm like, okay. And every time I do see a tender mercy, I'm like, okay, I must be doing it well to get that blessing, to get that little angel Alyssa kiss, to one step closer to see her again, and my grandparents and my loved ones. Not just her, there's so many. And it's true. It's just true. And like you were saying about scriptures, we just was going over today in Sunday school, how Shiblon was talking, and he was supported in all of his trials and his troubles. And he will be lifted up in the last day in Alma 36:3. That truly has always been one of my favorite scriptures. And I remember liking that. And I put it in my Book of Mormon. And that truly is how I live. That I know I will be lifted up and I will be perfect. And I will have my family for eternity as long as I keep going forward. I mean, we do all make mistakes and we will step back, but that's what the atonement's for. That's what repentance is for. But as long as we keep going, we will get those miracles, and just hold on. You're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
I love that.
So,
wow.
Do you know who Brene Brown is?
Who?
Brene Brown. Okay. She's a psychologist, but she has a quote in one of her books that says, "Darkness doesn't diminish the light; it defines it." And I was thinking about that quote, and I came up with another part of the quote. So me and Brene Brown came up with this quote together. It says, "Darkness doesn't diminish the light; it defines it. Suffering doesn't destroy our faith; it refines it."
Ooh.
I love that. You need to send that to me, please.
That's bumper sticker worthy. I keep saying we're going to start selling bumper stickers from the show. That's a good one.
I might put that in my book.
There you go.
That is really good. Yeah. And that's how I feel. I mean, hearing him has been a huge gift to me. It's been who I am. And I wish I could share that with President Nelson, because it's helped me survive. These last 5 years have even been harder. These last 4 years have been really, 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 really difficult. And like I said, I didn't even touch that. But as I hear him, it makes it easier.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I love that in your story, Nicole, that you've lost count. Like, you haven't kept a running score list of all of the trials and tribulations that you've gone through, right? But you are so good at pinpointing all of your tiny little miracles. And I think just that in itself is like such a huge determining factor on how you are able to endure the things that you're going through, right? It's like, are you tallying up all of the trials and making sure that you can like keep track of all of the unfairness and the injustice and the struggle and stuff like that? Or are you like constantly focused on tallying up all of the blessings?
And
You know, are you constantly showing gratitude for all of these little miracles that are happening in these things that you do have in your life that are helping you to get through the things that you don't really need to like keep track of per se? And so I just think that's such a, not just healthy, but it's just such a beautiful way to endure well, you know,
Yeah.
to get through life when things aren't always going to be that pretty and that perfect, you know?
And that is one thing my sister Amber always says. She's like, my mom would always go, Nicole, count your blessings. You have so many of them. And Amber, and I would tell my sister, be like, Amber, mom always says this, but I do that all the time. And she's like, I know you do.
Yeah.
So it really makes a difference. It really makes a difference to count those blessings one
Awesome.
by one. So,
Yeah. Well, Nicole, you are an inspiration. If anybody is refining their faith from going through suffering, I think you are a great example. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but
it's been my whole life, trust me. So,
but I think from the trials and things that you've gone through, you can inspire people and provide hope, you know, and even if it's for your family, right? Even if you just write that book and it's for your family, that's going to inspire them, and it's going to give them hope and courage when they go through trials and when they have suffering.
yeah.
And you know, the people that watch this podcast, they're going to hear your story and they're going to be inspired from it. So
No, thank you.
it's one of those challenges we have in life, right? We just have to go through some difficult times, but those
And you're
times
not the
can
only
refine
one.
us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Miss Nicole, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Just look for those miracles. Look for those angel kisses. They are there. Your loved ones are there. They watch over you, and they know your Heavenly Father knows what you need. Even if it's not what you think.
Yeah.
He knows what you need.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's the perfect way to wrap up today's show. I don't think we need any expansion on that. That was it. I just feel so good right now. Like my heart just feels all warm and happy, and my cheeks hurt a little bit from smiling. And I didn't cry off all my makeup, just a little bit of it. So.
I'm glad. And thank you both for letting me be on today and sharing my story. And if anybody needs anything, or I'm here.
Thank you. That's so awesome. Well, we really appreciate you reaching out to us and not only being a listener yourself, but now coming on, being a guest, being part of the Latter-day Lights family. We're so happy to have been able to spend this time with you today and to hear more of your story and your testimony. And I think it's going to definitely touch a lot of hearts. And so,
thank you
so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for watching and tuning in to listen to Nicole's story. And one of the best ways that you can help us get that out is to do your 5-second missionary work and hit that share button so we can get this story to as many people as we can.
Yep, absolutely. And remember, if you guys have a story that you'd like to share, we want to hear from you. We would love to either see your comments if you want to post a comment on here and let us know, what resonated with you. And if you do have a story that you'd like to share as well, you can also go to latterdaylights.com and fill out the form at the bottom of the page, or you can email us at latterdaylights@gmail.com. Any of those ways, you can find us on Facebook. Lots of different ways to reach out. But if you're getting that little inkling, if you're getting that little, that little tingling in your chest and Heavenly Father's kind of giving you the elbow, nudging you, reach out to us, Yep. Don't be scared, or be scared, but do it anyway. I don't care.
I was scared and I did it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, Nicole survived.
I survived.
We can do hard, scary things like going on podcasts. It's totally fine.
Telling your life.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Man.
Well, thanks again, Nicole, and thanks everyone for being on. And we will talk to you next week with another episode from Latter-day Lights. Till then, take care.
Bye, guys.